Hey, Luke, have you seen any trailers recently?
You know what, Michael? I have seen a couple of trailers. One of them starred Paul Rudd in the new Ghostbusters movie.
Oh, really? I didn't want to talk about that. I'm just kidding. That's exactly what I wanted to talk about. So obviously, Sony, like, did you see the line where Paul Rudd says, there hasn't been a kind of haunting event in 30 years?
Yes,
so
I enjoyed
just
that.
Slapping. The thing is about it, I mean, what bothers me about the whole thing is everyone saying, well, there are some people who are saying it probably won't even be that good, which I think is good, because clearly those people are heroes. Another thing people are saying is that it's The Force Awakens, the trailer.
Okay.
Basically, you know, because it's got all the nostalgia, and at the end it shows the kind of, like the Millennium Falcon showing up instead it's the...
Yeah, the car, yeah.
What's really annoying, but I get why every single woman on the planet, if I understand correctly, is annoyed, because they made a female Ghostbusters, and not really through any fault of the cast, the film wasn't very good. It was just, you know, not very well written, all that stuff. So, like, if this film actually turns out to be good, then basically what Sony has done is I understand that all corporations that have these
they've proven women
aren't
aren't funny.
Yeah, I was going to say, these corporations are obviously completely sincere in their efforts to spread feminism by casting all-female cast. It's got nothing to do with commercial success or anything like that. But Sony, what they've done is actually set back the kind of the... I don't want to say feminism, because, let's be honest, it's stupid to say Ghostbusters has anything to do with feminism, but the popular opinion of kind of feminism, all that
maybe
stuff.
Female representation in comedy movies, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, because they were like, let's cast a load of women and also just not make a very good film. And now they're like, okay, and the thing is, like, as much as obviously the entire world is very sexist, the reality is that the reason most people don't like Ghostbusters, especially the reason why you and I don't like Ghostbusters, is because it's not that funny, it's not that well made. And if we do like this film, it will be because it is funny and it is well made.
Well, maybe for you, not for me, pal.
Well, it would have been good, even if it had women in it. So I guess what I'm really saying, Luke, I don't know if you can agree with this, is that it's not whether or not a film has women in it that makes it good or bad, but whether or not a film is good or bad.
I don't know, mate. I don't know. I'd have to think about that one a bit more. But...
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films from the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by your co-host Luke. And this week we are celebrating, I believe, the anniversary of this film, but also the forthcoming release of The Rise of Skywalker, by looking at where the whole thing began, really, unless you're talking about chronologically, The Phantom Menace. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about The Phantom Menace?
Sure thing, Michael. So, like you said, this is the beginning. We're approaching episode 9. This is a review of episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and I don't think anyone's ever done a review of The Phantom Menace before.
No, definitely not a good one.
Yeah, so, we're breaking new ground here. So, Star Wars Episode 1, also known as The Phantom Menace, is a 1999 American epic space opera film written and directed by George Lucas. Produced by Lucasfilm and distributed by 20th Century Fox. It is the first installment in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. It stars Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, Jake Lloyd, Ian McDiarmid, Anthony Daniels, Kenny Baker, Penelope August, and Frank Oz. And it is the first film in the 9-part Skywalker saga, though it was forced to be released, so now it's a Skywalker saga, apparently. That's what Star Wars is now. That's
what it's been. That's a retronym. That's what it
is. Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure Rian Johnson would agree with that. But there we go. So, it was released on May the 19th, 1999. So, just over 20 years ago in the United States. And Michael, can you tell me the budget for Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace?
A lot. 100... No, I'll just go for 200 million. That seems like a lot, but I'm going to go for 200 million.
200 million?
Yeah.
115.
Okay. Yeah. I was thinking about going for 150 and that didn't feel like enough, but...
Anyway. And now box office, yeah. How much did it make?
Surely this obviously made like a huge amount. I'm just thinking, surely it broke the billion. Surely it did. I mean, I know that like money's worth less and all that kind of stuff, but surely it broke the billion. I mean, I feel like I should know how much it broke. I'm just going to go 1 billion.
Well, Michael, the gross was 1.027 billion. So you are correct, but initially it only grossed $924 million, but it was back in 2012, yes, when another $102 million was added to the box office because of the release of the 3D version of the film.
Yeah, I remember when that was released.
Yeah.
And yeah, great.
Yes, obviously.
There was actually a kid at my school who seemed to like... I couldn't tell if he was being ironic, but he was like... he did a Jar Jar impression when he was like, "Me so excited to see Phantom Menace," and I was like, does he know?
You better be joking.
No, I'm not kidding. He was also really tall, so I mean,
oh my god,
I bet he wanted to play Jar Jar.
Yeah, maybe he did.
In the sequel trilogy.
So obviously, Revenge of the Sith was followed by 2 sequels: Attack of the Clones in 2002 and Revenge of the Sith in 2005. I did say the Phantom Menace then, didn't I?
I think you said Revenge.
Yeah,
of the Sith,
I think I did.
actually.
Yeah. So the Phantom Menace was
like,
followed. Yeah, by those 2 movies. Yeah, my bad there. So essentially, Michael. Well, I guess the question now comes to: did we like the Phantom Menace? What do you think?
I didn't like it.
No, I can't say
like
I liked it either. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
Well, the thing is, I grew up on these prequels, as kids of my generation did. So I can't hate them. But no, I mean, here's the thing: I watched this movie a bunch when I was younger. Didn't notice it was bad. Just went along with it. Didn't understand what the fuck was going on, but I didn't care. And now looking back,
I liked the laser swords.
Yeah. Now looking back on it, it's like, oh yeah, this isn't good at all, is it?
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think we'll get more specifically into the nature of our generation, the predicament of our generation when it comes to the prequels. As I like to call it, the millennial prequel predicament. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Catchy. Right.
Yeah.
Nitpicks.
But yeah, how many nitpicks you got?
I didn't really know what to do with this because I just have one proper one.
Okay. So, yeah, so like I've already kind of said to you, like I was writing those nitpicks and I realised actually they were more than nitpicks. But I still do have 6 left. They're all tiny. But I was able to get 6.
Okay, so what I was going to do, I was going to say my real nitpick and just list all the stuff that I could have put in, which basically what I was going to say is just watch the Blinkit videos. And I'm saying it now, so that's what I'm saying. Just watch the Blinkit videos if you want to know all the nitpicks that occur in The Phantom Menace. But I just want to do one nitpick, which is very personal to me, which is the title of the movie, The Phantom Menace.
Oh, yeah.
Like, when I was a kid, I didn't understand what that meant.
I didn't either.
No, I was like, and think about it, this movie marketed towards kids who have such an obscure name, like The Phantom Menace. It is like, and it's so weird. I didn't know what it meant until, I don't know, several years later.
I actually remember asking my dad what it meant, and he was like, well, a phantom is a ghost, and a menace is like a villain. So it's saying like a ghost villain. And I was like, oh, thanks, Dad. That's how he explained it to me.
Yeah, it's just such a shit title anye for a movie.
Yeah.
Because and we'll get into it, but
especially compared to like Attack of the Clones, if I was that with like Attack of the Clones. Do you know what happens in that, Luke?
The clones attack.
A bunch of clones attack. Yeah, Phantom Menace.
The Sith gets its revenge.
Yeah, the Empire strikes back.
There is a new hope.
Rey will not be the last Jedi.
Skywalker does rise.
Yeah, he does.
There is a Rogue One. No, I don't know. Anyway, so Michael, so I just run through all the nitpicks that I had, and maybe these are some of your 6.
Yeah, I imagine you'll probably get some.
Yeah, so I think the egregious ones, this is what I listed, I could have gone up, but anyway. The whole shield generator thing, the bad guys hit the ship right away, but never again. Like, they get through the blockade, no problem getting into Naboo. How easy it is for the droids to invade Naboo. Padme has to clean R2-D2, even though she's the actual queen. I really enjoyed that one. Qui-Gon talking to Jar Jar, taking Jar Jar into Tatooine for some weird reason. He should have just stayed on the ship. And also Padme coming along for the ride, even though she is the actual queen. Watto being the only one with a hyperdrive generator, and Qui-Gon getting lucky.
Leaving him as well.
Or Qui-Gon not bothering to look in all the other places.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I notice I'm listening a lot of nitpicks around this time. So it's like in the middle of the movie when it's just like, it just goes off the rails, really. Yeah. Anakin building a protocol droid, which is similar to the other droids in the galaxy, and that's obviously C-3PO. That's so dumb. Anakin being too old to be a Jedi. And also, this is the one which I found really weird looking back on. Like, being afraid of not seeing his mum is a bad thing. Like, firstly, with comparing to his son, Luke Skywalker, he was 18, obviously, when he first got trained, but, like, Luke feared for his friends as well. And that's why he went off to save them in Empire Strikes Back. Like, being afraid...
Yeah, but he shouldn't have done that, Luke. She should have finished... Isn't it funny that your name's Luke and his name's Luke? Anyway, he should have... he lost his hand. He wouldn't have lost his hand if he let his friends die.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, of course he's afraid of his not seeing his mum again. Well, he's fucking 9 years old. What do you expect? I mean...
I also like the implication, like, how young are they taking these kids? Because I would think any kid who's, like, conscious... Like, if you took a 1-year-old baby away from their mum, I think that 1-year-old baby... How young are these kids where they're like, oh, yeah, bye, mum. See you later.
Yeah, it's like the Barcelona. They have this academy called La Masia, and it's literally like Well,
Jedi.
Yeah, Jedi. That's the thing. They learn a specific philosophy about Barcelona football, and they live there. It's like a boarding school, and I'm like, yeah, this is what the Jedis are apparently, like a Barcelona FC. But anyway, and my last one, Qui-Gon bringing Anakin into a war zone. Like, what the fuck? I couldn't believe that. Again, it's just one when you're watching, and it's like, wait, why is Anakin with them? They're getting shot at. Are you fucking mental, mate? So yeah, those were the ones. I don't know how many there were, but yeah.
You actually only covered one of mine, which is so mine are the line "Destroy what's left of them," which is such a stupid line. Like, they must be dead by now. Destroy what's
Maybe
left.
It's just a really cool thing to say.
Yeah. The never again seen ability to run really fast is a really strange one. Why would he? It's so universe breaking to just have this idea of like, yeah, Jedi can just run.
No.
Super fast.
Maybe the droidekas are just really slow, and by the time they got around the corner, the Jedi were already there.
Yeah, maybe. Sidious talks to Maul in the middle of a densely populated capital of the Republic. That just seems a bit risky, This one's talking about Anakin while he's literally right there, where Obi-Wan's like, "The boy is dangerous, can't you see it?" And like Anakin's just in the background, like a few feet away, and it's like, why even try and be a bit more discreet? Anyway, and finally, it's a battle one, and I am fond of battle ones. The Gungans should have stood closer to the edge of the shield, so there'd be less time before they're shot. Like, I was thinking about this. What you would really do if you were sensible is you'd have a shield generator and you'd have like one line of Gungans stood at the front, and they would fire at the droids, and then when their numbers fell, another line would come in. Like, just be a bit more sensible. They were like stood well back from the shield generator, which meant that the droids could walk through and shoot at them unmolested. Stupid.
Very stupid.
Anyway, someone said this isn't a clever film. On that note, why don't you tell us the plot, Luke?
No, firstly, Michael, what we're going to go through is the opening to this movie.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah,
I thought maybe...
So, obviously, we're selecting and reflecting on the movie, but I think it's worthwhile to also reflect on the actual opening to this, because I think this is, correct me if I'm wrong, the most widely anticipated movie of all time, The Phantom Menace.
Yes.
Here's the thing, I wasn't around for it, obviously, I was very young, so I didn't know, but just looking at videos and all of that, from 1999. Like, people were going insane for this movie, and in a way that they weren't for The Force Awakens in 2015, because that was pretty big. I'd say the second is The Force Awakens, but yeah, people were naturally apprehensive a bit about The Force Awakens, just because of the prequels, and obviously you could also say, what about Avengers Endgame? And the answer to that is no. The Avengers Endgame didn't come close to The Phantom Menace. And I'm just going to give you some facts, by the way, that show there's literally nothing else like this movie. I think it's the biggest pop culture event that has ever taken place.
Yeah.
So employment. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think you're right. Just agree.
Yeah. Employment consultant firm Challenger, Gray and Christmas estimated that 2.2 million full-time employees missed work to attend the film. 2.2 million, resulting in
the money you made from work, you could have bought tickets from a scalper.
Resulting in a 293 million loss of productivity. According to the Wall Street Journal, so many workers announced plans to view the premiere that many companies closed on the opening day. Queues formed around the outside cinema theatres over a month before ticket sales began. And yeah, that's why I think you can't compare this to The Force Awakens or Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, I'll say this, okay. I think it's so justified. Like, when you think about it, because you watch the original trilogy, and I don't think they're 10 out of 10 films or anything like that, but they are solid. They're a solid
very
story.
Good,
they're absolutely solid. Yeah. And then you think, okay, number one, so you've got this track record, and then number two, it's the where the story began. I think there's something very exciting about that, because you kind of get to see the backstory to all these characters you really like. So I can get that. And also, the original trailer was really good. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I think we've spoken about the original trailer before.
I think we did, yes.
And it's got like the shot of the Gungans riding into battle in the midst. That's like one of the first shots seen. It's probably the best shot in the whole film. It's like the only thing in the whole film that looks good.
Yeah.
But that makes sense. And you compare it to, obviously, for example, Force Awakens, where you got number one, there's not a great track record. But then number two, it feels like, I think the other thing is, knowing that George Lucas, this was his vision, I think people were excited about that. Like, oh yeah, George Lucas, the guy who created this. This is his idea. Whereas, of course, when you get to The Force Awakens, you're like, well, Disney bought this property with the intention of making money from it, and they hired J.J. Abrams, a kind of, middle of the road director, to just make I think most people were expecting it not to be this fantastic thing, and the people who expected The Force Awakens to be fantastic were idiots. Whereas I could completely understand everybody
I know, yeah, because
going into the Phantom Menace and thinking, yeah, this will be really good. You know, it's this great track record. This director who clearly cares about the project, telling the story he wants to tell about these characters we all love.
Yeah,
and therefore I can completely understand why everyone was really pissed off.
Well, exactly. Well, we'll get onto that. But yeah, what you said there is quite key. George Lucas was directing and writing it. George Lucas, who created Star Wars, you know, he was
the Godfather.
Yeah, the Godfather of Star Wars. But it seems like he's literally, without him, it would not exist. So he's, you know, literally the Mr. Star Wars, and he's doing this movie, and he's had years of planning. You know, he's worked it out meticulously, and like you say, the characters are back, and you know, they're the ones that fans liked. So yeah, I can imagine because of George Lucas's involvement, people were sure they were going to really enjoy it, and then they watched the movie. And so I think the fact that the movie was so bad suggests it was like the biggest failure ever, the biggest disappointment of a movie ever. Can you think of anything more disappointing than The Phantom Menace, a movie that had such hype around it that just fell flat? Because the thing is, in recent
not
years,
really. I mean,
we've had Marvel movies and they've never fallen flat. Some people said The Last Jedi fell flat, but
I think maybe you could say at a push that Batman v Superman.
Yeah, but there was already the Man of Steel, wasn't there?
Yeah, you know what? I think that's it. Yeah, and that's the problem.
So I wasn't expecting great, and especially after they released that trailer with Doomsday.
Yeah, they didn't have good trailers. Yeah, and I really can't, because obviously there was the Indiana Jones, the fourth Indiana Jones, which was a similar thing, and that was not greatly received. There are films which I personally think shouldn't have been as well received as they were after a little.
Yeah, but what about the biggest disappointment?
But that's the thing, you know. I think even then, most people enjoyed those films. Yeah, honestly, I don't think. I really don't think there's anything that comes close.
No, I don't think there is.
People maybe were excited about Fantastic Beasts, and that was bad. But was anyone really that excited?
No, nobody. No chance anyone cared about Fantastic Beasts. No, because again, it's a different story. It's different characters to Harry Potter, and you could say maybe Harry Potter. That was obviously in the 2000s. That was the big franchise that everybody went to see. Maybe Harry Potter, the last Harry Potter. Maybe that got a lot of hype, but I mean, they pretty much told the whole story up to that point, and obviously anybody who read the books knows what's going to happen. So yeah, I think The Phantom Menace unequivocally tops the list of biggest ever disappointment from a movie, for sure. By the way, only 2 movies were released on the same weekend as The Phantom Menace, which were The Love Letter and Notting Hill. Yeah. Remember when we did Notting Hill and we talked about commercialization? Some critic compared Notting Hill to The Phantom Menace, which was great. The Love Letter, by the way, was a commercial failure, but Notting Hill fared better and followed The Phantom Menace closely in second place.
Well done, Notting Hill. So that was that was the deal. It was like I was going to say the Star Wars fans were like, oh yeah, let's go see Star Wars, and then but then I realised no Star Wars fan would be in a relationship.
Yeah, I think we made that joke last time.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably.
So it's a good joke.
Yeah, it's a very good joke. So anyway, let's get into the plot, Michael, of The Phantom Menace. So I'm just going to read it out here, if I can find it. So here we go. The Phantom Menace is set 32 years before the original films and follows Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi as they protect Queen Amidala in hopes of securing a peaceful end to an interplanetary trade dispute. Ooh, sounds fun. Joined by Anakin Skywalker, a young slave with unusually strong natural powers of the Force, they simultaneously contend with the mysterious return of the Sith. So I think that the plot for this movie pretty much sums up its issues. So you've got fucking interplanetary trade disputes, then Anakin Skywalker's tagged in, and then the Sith's tagged in as well. Like, can you tell me what The Phantom Menace is actually about, Michael?
It's about family, and that's what makes it so special. I mean, it's like you would really that's the thing. There is no.
There's loads of shit going on.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you were to say anything, you'd say, oh, it's about Palpatine sneakily rising to power.
Yeah, but that hardly is in the movie.
That's happening. But yeah, I know. Yeah, that's the thing that's happening in the background, and then the foreground, I guess you'd say, it's about these guys trying to get an orphan kid, even though he only shows up at
he's like a C-plot, isn't he?
Exactly.
Anakin.
Yeah, that's the thing. There is a lot of
and the A plot is
unclearness.
The A plot is returning Naboo back to the Queen, but
from the blockade.
But here's the thing: we don't care about that. I mean,
I do.
It's like the Queen is just it's the Queen of this planet. It is something out of, I guess, the Clone Wars. It's like, these two Jedis have to go on a mission. It's not really like a movie really quest, is it? Like, it's something...
No, yeah, you're right, actually.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Qui-Gon dies at the end, but that's just kind of incidental. It's just like George Lucas just shoves Darth Maul in there so we get a cool fight at the end.
Yeah. I mean, one thing actually that I think we should talk about is there's a big debate which is worse, Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones. For me, one thing it does come down to is the fact that this film adds nothing. When you really break it down, okay, you've got Darth Maul, who dies at the end of this film, so nothing. Qui-Gon, who dies at the end of this film, so nothing. And then you've got Anakin, who, of course, by the time we see him next, is a completely different character.
Yeah, Anakin didn't need to be in this movie. There's no need for him to be there, yeah.
You know, like, there is no reason to watch Phantom Menace, and while I think, you know, it's not as if Attack of the Clones is good, Attack of the Clones, at least kind of, you need to watch it. You can, like, I've actually said to... Are you familiar? There's like a recommended Star Wars
I've heard of this,
order, and it's like you start with, so basically it goes New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, then Episode 2, Episode 3, and then Episode 6. So 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. And where's Episode 1? Where's the Phantom Menace? You don't need to watch it. It doesn't add anything to the film.
Completely unnecessary. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's another problem. Like, and that relates to the fact there isn't really a clear plot.
Yeah, exactly. It is unnecessary. But here's the thing. Obviously, what you explained before was that the main actually thing that happens in this movie that affects the whole rest of the Star Wars universe is Palpatine becomes Chancellor. But again, that's like a fucking story. Like, it's the 5th most important thing that happens in the movie.
Yeah, it's a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one.
Great. So that's the only real important thing that happens. But again, there's not much attention paid to it, and that is when we get into the whole politics. Because that's the thing. If you're going to watch this movie and as like to understand what happens in Star Wars, then you need to pay attention to the politics. And so the politics in a Star Wars movie, maybe not the best idea. We'll get into that, but I think there is a lot of issues with the politics in this.
Are we going to talk about how it makes no sense at all?
Yes, that's what exactly.
I'm a big fan of that.
So I'm going to start off first, Michael. The very first scene in the movie. 2 Jedi Knights, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn, are sent for talks with the Trade Federation.
Of course.
But they're Jedi Knights. If I was the Trade Federation and the fucking Chancellor sent Jedi Knights to talk with me, I'd be like, what the fuck, mate? This is very aggressive of you. Like, it's not that to me doesn't scream diplomacy. That screams. It
seems like a Boris Johnson move. Boris Johnson's the kind of person who'd send his goons over to talk with somebody who's disagreeing with him.
And that would be fine if that was Chancellor Valorum's like motive. It's
character.
Like, I'm going to intimidate him, but it's not. He just sends the 2 Jedi because it's like, fuck it, let's just send him. And there's no reason to do it. Why not send people who are actually diplomats, not fucking Jedi warriors? Anyway, also my next one, which is really confusing. How is this blockade legal? Like, how are they legally blockading a planet? Surely that's not allowed. Don't you think? Like, if Naboo has representation in the Senate, surely you couldn't do that. So I'm just saying, immediately, like, from the first fucking thing that happens, I don't think that would ever take place in this galactic empire.
Yes, I don't. I mean, the whole thing about, like, the Queen is going to sign this treaty under duress, which is then going to make the invasion legal, is such a stupid thing. And, like, also, okay, so I kind of get some degree of logic to it. You could say, okay, this shows that the Republic is failing because these kind of things are happening. But then you also think, okay, and I also get how, like, you could say a blockade, like, one side could say, oh, you know, we're being reasonable because we're just trying to, you know, enforce our rights or something like that. But then also you think, how just surely at this point you'd have like more things going on there. And it's kind of, what's also kind of weird in a way is that there's like this full-on military blockade, and Qui-Gon's like, I sense an unusual amount of tension for something as trivial as this trade dispute. And you think, this isn't really that trivial. Like, there's huge, there's an armada there, but whatever.
How are they allowed to do a blockade in the first place? That's what I said.
I agree. It's a bit weird.
So, okay, these are all things which don't make sense in terms of just how the plot starts, I guess. But let's just get actually into the politics, or the heart of the politics in this plot. So, Palpatine wants to make Chancellor Valorum look weak. Okay, that makes sense. So he then can become Chancellor. Again, we don't really see the scene when he becomes Chancellor. That should be a big moment in the movie, in the fucking trilogy, you know. But we just hear he's been nominated, and then he returns to Naboo, and he's the Chancellor now. It's really not given the attention it really should. Many questions, though, arise from this trick, as obviously in the future we know that Palpatine is the Emperor. So there you go.
Yes.
So initially at the time, maybe people didn't suspect Palpatine was the Emperor. I mean, why would you? So people weren't looking for plot holes, but now looking back on it, knowing that Palpatine is the Emperor, questions are included. Why does the Emperor, obviously Palpatine, want the treaty that states the invasion is legal to be signed? Because that means the crisis would be over, and so there would be no vote of no confidence in the Chancellor. I don't know why Chancellor Valorum, by the way, is such a... I don't know, just lets... The Jedi says to him, yep, it's an invasion, and he doesn't listen, and it costs him his job.
Yeah.
Like, he's a fucking moron. Like, he must know...
He's I want to know more about this Chancellor Valorum.
Like, that's the thing, it'd be good if he had,
he is.
if he was being paid off by the Trade Federation, but they never make that claim. So, maybe he's been blackmailed by the Trade Federation. So, and, you know, Palpatine's done something to that regard, but that never comes out either, so it just doesn't make sense, his actions. And, Palpatine says...
Yeah, I think the main thing is more the original point you're making about how, it makes no sense that this is Palpatine's plan. Also, I mean, sorry, we were speaking about how, you know, Trade Federation has this weird blockade. It makes no sense that, like, why they're doing any of this either. Like, you got these two people with, like, these two different motivations. I guess the Trade Federation has a motivation. It's never clear that they have a motivation.
Well,
they just seem to be doing this for fun.
That's the Jedi, the Naboo, anyone else, really, never asks, why are the Trade Federation setting up a blockade in the first place? What is their motivation to invade this planet? Like, none of the Naboo don't ask themselves that. They don't say, well, why are they invading? What the fuck do they want? And the Jedi don't ask, anyone that. Like, what are they doing here? They're just, well, they're doing that. And the reason why they don't ask that question is because there isn't an answer, really. It's basically like, the Emperor told them to do it. And then that leads people to thinking, wait, so why did the Emperor tell them to do it? And there isn't an answer to that. And it's never explained. And so, the fact that the general lack of curiousness as to why this is happening is it's quite bizarre in the movie, but obviously the lack of curiousness is there, so the audience doesn't think about it. So they don't realise that, maybe the person who wanted to create the political crisis could actually benefit off them. Because then, if characters acted like normal and asked the questions, I bet some of the audience would be like, it's Palpatine who's behind it all. Because he's now Chancellor. Now it makes sense.
Right, I should say, by the way, I think, just on the subject of Palpatine being behind it all, I think right at the end, they basically do make it clear Palpatine's behind it all by having the visual cue of, like, it says, always two there are, who was the second one? And then it pans to Palpatine. So I think probably by the end of the film, most people were clear on the fact that Palpatine was a bad guy. So by that point, but then...
I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
I
mean, I would say I thought it was reasonably obvious from that kind of visual cue. But...
Yeah, but maybe it's... I forget that shot. Did it directly pan to him, or...?
It, pretty much. I mean, it stops on him, it lingers on him for a pretty good while. I would say that the film... It seemed to me like, if I understand the language of cinema, the film was trying to tell the audience, look, he's a bit dodgy.
I don't know why they'd make it that specific then. Because then, obviously, that's it. The whole point of the movie, the Phantom Menace, like, there's this mysterious phantom thing going on. And if you make it that obvious, then, like, the whole movie is just solved. Like, it was Palpatine. There you go. Right at the end. So, if that... What
a phantom.
I mean, the thing is, I wasn't really... Yeah, he's the Phantom. So I wasn't really looking for that, because obviously I already knew it was Palpatine. So I didn't really care. But maybe... I don't know. Maybe at the time people... maybe they knew, maybe they didn't. Maybe because obviously there wasn't theories bouncing around about Palpatine. Because there wasn't, like, an internet, really, back in 1999. I think maybe it's on the nose. And maybe if this movie was released in modern day, forgetting how shit it would be, like, and just imagine there was fan theories on it, I think the next day people would get it.
Definitely.
Like, especially with that shot,
I was just going to say, I think it almost would have worked better if the dispute was a legitimate dispute that happened just because of, two competing parties, and that it just so happened that Palpatine exploited that, so that, Palpatine didn't manufacture it. He just, and then you wouldn't have all these weird questions. You just go, okay, so there's this dispute going on, and then at the same time, there's this guy called Palpatine who's like trying to...
taxes.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Which is almost kind of what they do with the rest of the series, because the rest of the series you've got the Separatists and the Republic, and obviously the Separatists are influenced by Palpatine.
Yes.
But it makes it, like, the idea of there being separatists from this massive giant space bureaucracy makes sense. Basically, it's just Brexit. It would be like if there'd be this evil guy who's interfering while Brexit's happening, and that would be the the plot.
Yeah.
And that would be fine. But instead, by making it all like, he's pulling all the strings, it's like, well, then why is he pulling the strings in such a stupid way?
Yeah, that'd be better if like the separatists initially had a motivation and Palpatine just exploited that. Like I said, trade taxes. Like he was just waiting for his opportunity, and he seized upon it. That would make sense.
No, yeah, I agree. I mean, clearly he's a pretty old guy, so if he was like, I mean, did he just decide to do this yesterday? Because it seemed like a pretty stupid plan anyone could have come up with. So he clearly wasn't thinking about it for that long.
Yeah.
He's a pretty old guy, but he didn't have much time to think.
Also, one more thing, like, I don't know why Palpatine tries to kill the Jedi. This happens twice. He sends fucking Darth Maul to kill Qui-Gon.
That makes no sense at all.
Even they're the ones who are rescuing the Queen, so she can get back to the Senate and give the no confidence vote. Because imagine if Darth Maul kills Qui-Gon and then Obi-Wan there, and then they don't escape, and then what does Darth Maul do then with the Queen? Does he take him back to Naboo? Then, well, that doesn't make sense, because if you're Palpatine, you want the Queen in the Senate.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make any sense, really. Yeah,
no, it doesn't.
That bit. Why Darth Maul is trying to kill these guys. So yeah, again, watching it back, you just realise how George Lucas didn't really know what the fuck he was doing. But here's the thing, like, we've talked about how he doesn't know what he's doing and how the politics aspect doesn't make sense. And to me, like, it's really, well, we're critiquing the politics, but we should be critiquing just the inclusion of it at the end of the day. Because the thing is, it's in there, and it doesn't really need to be in there. Because okay, so here's my take on it. Like, the politics stuff, it needs to be in there if you want to explain what's going on in the movie, but they don't explain it good enough. But then if they explained it even more and had even more focus, this movie would be ridiculed even more. So it's probably better not to have any politics in this. Like, the movie is aimed at kids, after all. You can just spend, 2 minutes on it, basically. And so in this movie, there's a lot of politics at the beginning, and then about 1 hour, 25 minutes in, there's another, big chunk of politics after that. And it's like, the movie is kind of in a halfway house where I'm not quite sure what's happening, but it's still boring. Yeah. And that is a real issue.
I mean, see, for me, I've always thought it's a bit reductionist to kind of reduce the problem of this film down to the fact that politics is included. And one thing that I will say, I mean, we'll talk about this, obviously later, but one thing that a lot of people who like the prequels will say is they'll go, oh, look at these idiots. They don't like the fact that there was politics in their film because, politics is too intelligent and nuanced, these people. And obviously that's stupid, but I think it's obviously there's politics in lots of things. For example, there's politics in Lord of the Rings, and that's the best story ever. But I think and obviously you get well, why should we help Gondor after they didn't help us?
It's very simple.
That kind of makes sense. Yeah, I think basically the thing is what they call obviously court politics, which is kind of the politics you get with basically in most monarchies, which is these different competing interests and things like that. And that's kind of interesting. I think the problem is they make it too institutional. So it's like the bit where will you defer to a commission to explore the validity of your actions?
Imagine if you're a kid watching that.
Yeah, I know, yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, I think in some sense, it's not the biggest problem. I think they probably could have had the same amount of politics, had more interesting characters, and then they could have, used the politics, I guess, more efficiently to explain things.
Yes, I agree, yes.
But also, I think basically there's kind of film politics and there's real politics. And in film politics, especially a film like this, you should probably have quite simple politics. I think the problem is this is it's a critique of bureaucracy, seems to be the point. It's oh, look at all of this confusing stuff going on. This shows the problem, which is fine, but what you should really do, and this leads to another problem with George Lucas's dialogue in general, which we'll talk about later, but what you should really do is, for example, have a scene where, a character says, oh, the Trade Federation have joined the separatist cause, who are, opposed to the growing influence, or, the excessive power of the Republic. And it's okay, so, the separatists, they don't really like how the Republic's too powerful. Simple. But, and basically that's relatable motivation. Got big power, some people are against the big power, there's a rebellion, blah, blah, blah. Because obviously, in some sense, there is politics in the original trilogy. The politics is big bad empire, small little rebellion. Yeah, well, simple.
That's what I'm like. So they're in a halfway house. They either go...
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
They either go full politics and explain it all, and it makes sense, but then, you're putting all this in an action-adventure Star Wars movie, which doesn't really make sense. Or you just do, a kind of a bit, just have lines here and there, so people know what's happening. And that's obviously what happens in the 3 original Star Wars movies, and it's easier because there's a big bad empire, and, a small rebellion. But okay, that's fine. Make it easy. Make it simple in this new Star Wars movie. There's no need for taxation of trade routes and the trade federation.
I was going to say, the other thing they could have done, if George Lucas really wanted to, and I'm going to give him kind of some credit, he was trying to make a point, and the point would basically be that this democracy is too bureaucratic, which is why it fails. Let's just assume that's the point he's trying to make. You could make that point by having, for example, in the background. So in other words, Qui-Gon goes to see Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's, in this kind of forum of sorts, and there are people there, and there's, these big important people arguing about the taxation of trade routes, but it's like a conversation you can kind of hear in the background, like it kind of, the camera pans to the expert saying, oh yes, the trade route problem in Naboo, blah 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 blah, the taxes are going crazy on banter sales, and then it pans to Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan says, we need to make a move against Darth Maul quickly because he's planning on assassinating the Queen, and basically you have like the evidence of the fact that this is a very kind of pompous bureaucratic society where they've got all of these weird economic commerce problems, but it's not like let's stop the film so we can watch these guys debate these things instead of something that's happening in the background.
Alien Senate saying very
and I think that would make so much more sense.
Saying words which are like 5 syllables long, which obviously we get it, but if you're a kid like me watching it, I just watched those scenes and I'm like, I had no idea what the fuck was going on. Let's just get back to Darth Maul smashing Qui-Gon Jinn in the stomach. Let's go back to it. So, okay, those are the politics of it, I guess.
Do you want to talk about, I just think this might be related, kind of the politics of the Jedi? I just had one major thing to talk about there. So, I mean, obviously, we kind of already spoken about the fact that Anakin's too young and how that's a bit silly. The other thing I want to talk about is the entire... So, you get the Jedi in general, I think... It's not clear what they are, which is a whole other thing. Like they seem to be on the one hand... independent, but then they also do the bidding of the Chancellor. At one point, Qui-Gon says, I can't fight a war for you. Someone else says, we're keepers of the peace, not soldiers. There's like all this stuff going on, and you're like, okay, so who are these guys? But that's okay. But one thing I want to talk about is this idea of, the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force. First of all, no prophecies. I mean, they're okay, but then, like, it makes everything feel like less real. Because it's like, if you had this actual person, who was Anakin, who was like, just a human being who was really powerful, and then he was like picked up and all those things happened to him, then like that's so much better than being like, oh look, this guy fulfills the prophecy. That's why I care about him, because he's the cog in this prophetic machine. And the other thing is then the actual wording, bring balance to the Force, which makes no sense, because surely if the balance of the Force, doesn't that mean like a balance? How can bringing balance to the Force mean that there would be, surely balance would mean that there'd be equal light side and dark side. Like the whole term makes no sense. The concept makes no sense, and it's just stupid. What do you think?
I agree. I think there are real problems with the Jedi in this movie, and in the whole trilogy. So
and obviously there's the fact they're a bit weird.
I agree completely. Got nothing else to add on
that. So what else you got?
What else I got? Well, I think we should now dive into. I guess shall we do the characters first?
Actually I had one other thing. I didn't know where else to put this, but there was a weird editing thing which I wanted to talk about just because I found it funny. The shot of Maul flying off, so Maul on his desert speeder flies off, and then it just immediately cuts to Qui-Gon and Anakin running away.
Oh yeah, I mentioned that.
It was the worst edit I've ever seen.
Well, it was so bad. I had to assume there was this scene where Darth Maul confronts them, and
then they start running off.
And then
of course,
go on.
I was going to say George Lucas is like a lunatic when it comes to editing. He will be like, let's cut everything, let's add things in. He famously, I was actually watching a video last night because I was thinking about Phantom Menace, and it was showing how one of the things they used in the Phantom Menace was basically kind of split screen editing. And George Lucas was obsessed with it. So he'd be like, okay, well, I like this part of this shot and this part of that shot, so let's combine together. So he was like a lunatic when it came to editing. And yet apparently he watched that and he was like, yeah, fine. It's stylistically designed to be that way.
Yeah, it was, clearly. No, I did feel like, okay, this is where they must have cut out another scene to get to that point. There's no reason why they were running. And surely Darth Maul encountering Qui-Gon for the first time, you'd build that up instead of just like 1 second and then he comes flying in. It's so fucking weird.
It was so weird. Actually, another thing I just wanted to say, because I just realised this didn't really come under characters, the plan to get the ship part is unnecessarily elaborate, because you have to, and again, I know that Plinkett's covered this, but where he says, like, why didn't they just sell the ship for a less fancy but functioning ship? And things like that. Like, there's so many solutions which they could have had. Like, and I think that's the obvious one. Like, you've got this huge fancy ship, and you need to get from one place to the other. You know, walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, I've got this really fancy ship, but it doesn't work. You know, you'll have to get this piece of hardware, or I guess hardware is the right term, in order to get it to work. Hyperdrive in order to get it to work. But you know, if I give you this and you give me, you know, a shittier ship, but it still works, then that'll be good." And the guy's like, "Oh yeah, sure. I would like to have that really impressive looking, you know, little cruiser you've got. So I'll make that deal." And that would make so much more sense than, you know, the whole
yes, the whole thing. Well,
thingy.
Here's the thing. I was going to talk about that in the Anakin section, but
okay, yeah,
I don't know why Qui-Gon doesn't just literally steal the hyperdrive generator and then come back and pay him later if he's so bothered about it. Because obviously he does some questionable moral things, like he convinces the Gungan kings to give him the speeder. It's basically the same thing. Like he's giving you like a ship, and you trick him into doing that, and he tricks you. He can't trick Watto, but he just basically steals it from Watto. And again, if he's concerned, he just comes back and says, "Here you go. Here's the money that I owe you for that. Sorry, I couldn't pay you at the time, but that's just how it was." So,
also, by the way, that scene of them, just because you mentioned him giving them the bongo thing, whatever it's called, Miso give you a bongo. I was surprised when I watched it, like how just long and pointless it is. Like I never really remembered that scene of like how they you know, go into a cave and then there's a thing that follows them, and then they go into a different cave and there's another fish, and like in my memory I just remember, like, "Oh, we'll give you a bongo," and then they fly through and then they go out the other side. But no, there's like this whole pointless scene of a fish.
I don't know.
That was annoying.
Just CGI stuff. Anyway, I think we should get onto the characters now, Michael.
Yes.
So we haven't mentioned his name so far, I think, apart from the nitpicks, but I think the most infamous character to come out of this movie, and indeed in the whole Star Wars 9-episode saga, is Jar Jar Binks.
Yes.
The disabled 7-foot CGI rabbit that he is. Here's the thing, I was thinking, if his accent was just weird, sorry, not weird, just like normal to English-speaking audience is, of course, like, would he have received as much backlash as he did? Because...
like if he was Rick Moranis.
Yeah, because he's just kind of annoying, but again, if you took him out of the movie, it'd still be really shit. But again, I'm just thinking, like, the accent is what stands out to me as like why he was so infamous. If he just spoke normally, then I don't know if he'd get that much hate. If I'm being honest, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, so I guess we're saying he would still be like, "Hello there, my name's," like have the weird high pitchedness to it, the shrillness, but just not have the accent.
Yeah,
is that what we're saying? Yeah, I think. Yeah, he definitely the accent's like something which makes him feel a bit more obnoxious, and also makes it clear that he's supposed to be funny. And yeah, I think it doesn't help the film. I'll give it that.
No, I agree. Yes. So yeah, again, there's not much to say on Jar Jar, I think, apart from a massive mistake. And even though he was a funnier character than they ever had before, of course, they did not get him.
He was the key to this.
He was the key.
Actually, I did want to say the other thing related to him is that obviously you've got his character, but then also he is the primary dispensary for fart and poop jokes.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what he's in.
Which we don't like.
Yeah.
Although I did like. I'll say possibly my favourite bit was when he gets his tongue stuck in the thing and it goes, you know, crazy. You know, because that's funny. So I like that.
That's hilarious, that bit. Yeah. So I think we should now talk about Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon.
More like Qui-Gon, as in he's gone.
Yeah, he is gone. I watching it back, I didn't actually find his character as bad as I remembered. Maybe it's just because the whole rest of the film felt like a mess, and he's very like stoic and kind of
he's just normal.
Yeah, he's just normal.
I mean, that's the thing. He's not interesting. There's nothing about him which feels like
he's just generic Jedi, isn't he?
But he's not like he's not actively annoying.
And because he's just generic, it's hard to like you're just watching him and you're thinking, okay, it's not as bad as fucking Jar Jar or Anakin, so okay, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't really have a point in this movie. Again, I think the Plinkett criticism is correct. It should have just been Obi-Wan in this movie. There's no real...
Oh yeah, I mean, that's actually a question I wanted to ask you. Who is the main character in this film?
Well, that's the thing. It's the problem, I guess, with this whole film. It's like it's just such a mesh of all sorts of different stories. Again, it does feel like an episode of like the Clone Wars in that. But I don't know. It would have to be Qui-Gon because he's the one who's in it the most.
Yeah, he's the one who kind of you see from his perspective more.
Yeah, and he drives the plot the most. Yeah. But again, he dies and he's not relevant in the next 2 episodes. Again, how did Lucas write this and not think, I'm having probably the main character in my movie, Qui-Gon. He's just going to die and it's not going to affect the next 2.
Yeah, I genuinely think like he can't have really planned it ahead, because that's the thing. The fact that this film doesn't seem to relate to the rest of it just seems to prove that it doesn't really.
Or maybe he
work.
changed path when the backlash was so severe.
Yeah, maybe he was planning on having zombie Qui-Gon in the next ones.
Yeah.
I was going to say this might work. Do you have anything else to say about Qui-Gon?
No, I don't know.
Because I was going to say what might work as a bit of a transition is I would say that there was an interesting argument I saw basically saying that the main character of this film and also the prequels should have been, as in the prequels as a whole trilogy, should have been Obi-Wan. And the basic logic they said was, in the prequel trilogy, Obi-Wan should have been the main character. In the sequel trilogy, original trilogy, Luke should have been the main character, which obviously he was. And then the overarching story is about Darth Vader. And I think that makes sense, obviously. So you have, Obi-Wan Kenobi, because we see him in the New Hope, and it's a pretty iconic performance. And you think, yeah, you want to see like Obi-Wan's story, really. That's what you want to see. That's the character you already know. So you're like, yeah, I want to see Obi-Wan's story. I want to see how he went from being a young Jedi to being the kind of wizened old man he was. And obviously, Ewan McGregor's performance in number 2 and number 3 was really good. I think lots of people, I've heard them say, like, the best part of episode 3 is Obi-Wan, and how, like, convincing he is as a young Alec Guinness. Like when he goes, "Hello there." Yeah, that's straight Alec Guinness. But but the thing is, in this film, he's so far away from being a main character. He's like a background character who just sits there complaining and like just being miserable.
Yeah.
It's so weird because he obviously should have been like, maybe you say no, Anakin should have been the main character. Like that's something I could see people saying, but whether or not Anakin should have been the main character or Obi-Wan should have been the main character, Obi-Wan should have been like an important character. You're like, oh yeah, Obi-Wan, that's really exciting to see him. And you're just like, oh, Obi-Wan, he's just there. Yeah,
that's the thing. I'm watching it back. Obviously, you watched the Plinky videos. You remember watching it as a kid and all. Probably the biggest thing I was shocked by was the fact that Obi-Wan is basically non-existent in this movie. It was when Qui-Gon and him were talking on the ship, and I was just like, wait, I've hardly seen fucking Obi-Wan in this movie. He's not even here. He's literally barely in this movie, and it's crazy when he should be the main character. And when Anakin meets him as well, it's just such an awful moment. It's like, oh, here's Obi-Wan Kenobi, here's Anakin Skywalker, and they shake hands, and that's it. So, I think that should have been probably more significant.
And he was a good friend.
Yeah. Qui-Gon he shouldn't have been a character. It should have just been Obi-Wan. What is the point of Obi-Wan in this movie? How is Lucas writing it thinking, you know what, Obi-Wan, he stays on the ship? Was there no point when he was coming up with this movie where he thought, oh, you know what, I've kind of sidelined Obi-Wan here a bit. Probably the second most famous character in Star Wars. And I think I probably should,
have him do something.
Have him do something, yeah. Having maybe just write out that Qui-Gon character, in its entirety. Yeah. There's no real need for him to be here.
Yeah, well, I think it kind of the only reason why you might have Qui-Gon there is if you want to have Obi-Wan be kind of like a younger Jedi, and therefore and also they just tend to like being. Actually, I was going to say they like to be in pairs. I guess they're not really in pairs in the original, but I think if Qui-Gon was there, Qui-Gon basically should have been. Qui-Gon should have had Obi-Wan's role, and Obi-Wan should have had Qui-Gon's role, almost. Like, Obi-Wan should have been the one who's like, I want to bring this guy on board, and Qui-Gon should have been like, he's dangerous. So,
and Obi-Wan should be the ones going, to bargain with Watto and all of that, and he should be, the one doing all the action, and Qui-Gon could have sit back and been the old head, and then, I don't know what, does Qui-Gon still die in the end? I guess he does.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense for Qui-Gon to die at the end, seeing as Qui-Gon wouldn't be a main character.
Yeah, I guess he wouldn't be the main character, so he could die, and then Obi-Wan could learn a lesson of some sort based on what you've done throughout the movie. I'm not sure how to think about it more, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Have you seen? I actually was almost going to ask you if you wanted to watch this before we spoke about it, but I thought it's not really that important. But basically, there's a video called "What If Episode 1 Was Good," and it basically kind of does some marginal rewrites, but it includes things like making Obi-Wan a more central character, having Qui-Gon be a bit more of a background character, it just makes so much more sense. Why is Obi-Wan so irrelevant?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
But I think while obviously Obi-Wan should have been the big protagonist for this little film, I think it's also clear that we had a very interesting antagonist for this film by the name of Darthus Maulius.
He was interesting.
What do you think of him?
Because he had 2 lightsabers.
That's the thing. I mean,
he's hardly in this movie at all.
It's interesting because I think people like Darth Maul, and I think he is a good design, and I don't think he should write off good design. Yeah, he's designed really well. The fact he has 2 lightsabers is interesting, and he does seem kind of scary. And also the fact he kills a Jedi which is like quite impressive. You know, he kills a Jedi in hand-to-hand combat, like, you know, they're equal. He kills a Jedi. Darth Vader. Oh wait, no, he kills Ben Kenobi. But you know, generally speaking, we don't see Darths kill Jedis, and he does a good job. He fights a well-trained Jedi at their prime, Liam Neeson, and he defeats him. Oh yeah, and he's fighting too, and then obviously, then obviously he kills Qui-Gon, which you'd think would establish him as a good antagonist for Obi-Wan Kenobi throughout the series. You know, he's got personal beef with Darth Maul. Darth Maul killed his master, and then Darth Maul dies at the end, which means, well, he doesn't die, it turns out, but which means that now Obi-Wan has no personal involvement. You know, he defeats him at the end of the film, which is another reason, because here's the thing, I mean, we've spoken before about how the Phantom Menace is pointless, it doesn't contribute anything to the story, and an example of that is that Darth Maul, somebody who should have kind of an interesting backstory based on what he does to Obi-Wan and how he kills Qui-Gon, dies at the end of this film, so you're like, okay, it doesn't matter, really, does he?
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, here's the thing, he's the main bad guy, and obviously he's the tool of the Sith. But I still think, like, if he was in this movie more, if he was maybe helping the Trade Federation to do something, and you know, he's just barely in this movie. Yeah,
he should have had a more substantial mission.
Yeah,
like, it should have been the moment where he goes, Maul, I need you to go and put down a Naboo uprising, and like, you know, there'd be like an uprising in Naboo where there's these independent rebellion, and then Maul shows up
and he just kills them all.
Yeah, and it shows like how powerful he is. That would have been great.
That would have been really good. That would have been
Michael.
Like 2 minutes, 3 minutes long, probably. Maybe a bit more, actually. Maybe, let's say 5 minutes to establish the mission. But yeah, that. Yeah,
but they could have got rid of the bit when they're in the water in the bongo, so...
Yeah, and he showing up in Tatooine is pointless again for the Emperor's plan, because he wants he wants the Queen to get to Coruscant. So instead of doing that, he's putting down the rebellion. And yeah, then at the end of so it makes sense then when he's back on Naboo at the end, like he's actually trying to quash the rebellion. And so when the Jedi show up to try and obviously free the people, free the Queen, and all that, it makes sense why he's there to actually stop them, because he's got a stake.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
so that all makes sense. So again, we're just
make it better on the fly.
Make it better on the fly.
Just come out with a better version of it, just easily.
Okay,
we should have been there at the pitch meeting.
I think we now need to talk about Anakin Skywalker. I love one of the first things he says is like, "I'm a person and my name is Anakin."
Oh God, I mean, that's the thing. I think that's the main thing. He is not likable.
No.
It makes, and the thing is, he's really confident, like obnoxiously confident, which makes no sense when he's a slave.
He's obnoxious. He talks back to fucking Sebulba. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
If Sebulba surely could just hit Anakin and nothing would happen because he's a slave and he doesn't have rights. And I imagine a person like Sebulba would do something like that. So yeah, I don't really know why he's written like that. He should be kind and nice and just not so arrogant. I guess that George Lucas writing kids, he's like, oh, you know, my little types are like that, so you know, Anakin's got to be like it. And maybe Anakin being like that is more popular for the kids watching who are like, yeah, Anakin's cool, I want to be like him. The fact that he talks back and stuff. But yeah, he is kind of annoying, and Jake Lloyd doesn't do that great a job. But again, with George Lucas directing, did he ever have a chance?
No, yeah, I think that's actually a good point to get onto a big thing, which is, I wanted to bring up, which is the dialogue in this film is so bad. And the thing is, again, because I get Star Wars recommended on YouTube all the time, there's a good interview, which is the original cast, the video is called something like Original Star Wars Cast Talking About Dialogue. And Luke tells a story about a famous line, and as he tells her, he's like, I begged George to cut it out of the script. And it's a line where Harrison Ford says, listen, kid, I'm going. And Luke says, I'm not going to be able to get the line exactly, but it's like, well, don't worry. I mean, most of the soldiers are going to be on recon. They're only going to have a small army at the Force. And even then, it's probably just for show, like something like that. That's basically the line. In other words, the line is like a very dense, tactical line from this like farm boy. And you kind of, and like I say, so obviously it doesn't sound natural. It sounds weird. It sounds like it was not a real person talking. I think the problem with George Lucas is every line of dialogue George Lucas writes, he doesn't think about who's saying that line of dialogue. I genuinely think that's it. Like, he doesn't think to himself, you know, I don't think he thinks of his characters as characters. He doesn't think to himself, what would this character say in this situation? He just says, what do I want to be said in this situation?
And like, he divvies up the lines so everyone gets a line.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, and that's why you get kind of these lines which sound just boring and like weird and unnatural and like overly technical. Because basically the dialogue's just terrible. And obviously the reason why I bring it up is because you've got this Anakin, this little kid, who has to deliver these, terrible lines. I don't think, I'm going to guess Anakin probably, he's not much of a character, he's not much of a method actor. He probably didn't sit there, Jake Lloyd, he's not much of a method actor, he probably didn't sit there and go, now listen George, I actually think that my character here would say, I'll try spinning, that's a good trick. I'm going to imagine that George Lucas came up to him and said, okay, we're going to say, I'll try spinning, that's a good trick. And Jake Lloyd said, okay, I'm just a 10-year-old or whatever, and boom.
Yeah.
So poor Jake Lloyd.
Oh god, poor Jake Lloyd. He obviously, if you don't know, he had a lot of issues after this episode of Star Wars came out, including bullying and issues with his mental health. Yeah, man, that's you think you've made it? You're in a Star Wars movie. Wow.
Yep, and then it sucks. But you know what? Maybe he shouldn't ruin Star Wars.
It's pronounced Coruscant, right? You moron. Okay, cut. Right, I have some issues though with Anakin and in general, because obviously he's
I love issues.
Yeah, he's introduced as a person who can. The reason why he's useful to the plot is he can help Obi-Wan get that hyperdrive generator. How is he useful? Because he's involved in pod racing.
Oh yeah, I love pod racing.
Here's the thing. Firstly, there's the convenient that this massive pod race takes place the very next day. That Anakin can race in, and that Qui-Gon needs the parts for. I just want to know though, how did Anakin get involved in racing in the first place? Because he's a kid, and whose idea would it be to put him in a pod, in a pod racer?
No, I know what happened, Luke. Okay, you've got to realise this is what happened. One time, he was there with his friends, and some droids attacked, and somebody said, "Anakin, stay out of sight." So he walked into a pod racer to hide. However, then it got stuck on autopilot, so he started flying away, and that's how he became a pod racer.
Yes.
He just went into the cockpit to hide is all, and then, it went on autopilot and it just started flying off.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly normal thing that happens to Anakin all the time.
Yes. Yeah, I guess so, yeah. By the way, the whole betting thing, I think I understand all of it, because I think I was going through, because I knew what was coming, so I was like, okay, I'm preparing myself for this betting thing.
Remember.
But, yeah, it ain't easy to work out. Overall, I was like, okay, there has some logic to it, but God, it's so complicated. If you're not prepared for it, and you're just watching it in the cinema, like without trying to figure out what's happening, you're like, okay, what the fuck's going on? Let's just race. Okay, if Anakin wins, good. If he loses, bad. There we go.
Also, two minor things about the pod race. Like, I would say, generally speaking, I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was probably one of the better moments.
Where's
of
the stewarding?
On the Phantom Menace, just because the stewarding.
Yeah, the stewarding.
Is that like
those are like the referees. Like, Sebulba should have been given a drive-through penalty. Like,
it's a Wild West out there. But no, I'll say it's probably, possibly. I said before we started that I might consider asking you what's the nicest thing you can say about the Phantom Menace. And as it happens, fortuitously, for me, the nicest thing I would probably say is I'd say, the pod race is fine. It's entertaining.
Well, the nicest thing
there's no crappy dialogue.
The nicest thing I'd say is the Duel of the Fates music. That is the...
Oh, yeah, the music's
without
good.
Without doubt the best.
The music's good.
From
but I was going to say, the one weird thing I thought about the pod race is, number one, okay, like, they make things unnecessarily difficult for Anakin. Number one, why does Sebulba view Anakin, like this little kid, as such a rival that he's willing to, like, sabotage his thing? You think, like, surely he'd sabotage one
maybe
of the other
because he taught
things. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But then, number two, like, they have this thing where his race won't start, his speeder won't start, and you think to yourself, he's already, he's a little kid. Why add this extra thing? Because then you're just like, wow, this is stupid. Like, it feels like he shouldn't need to be given a handicap at that point. And I'm like, what if everyone else is racing and his pod doesn't start? And you're like, no, that's stupid.
There was also a quadratito or whatever whose thing wouldn't start. Remember?
Oh yeah, that quadratito.
Because he's called that because he has 4 engines.
Okay, that's cool. I thought it was called that because he kind of looked like his face was like a rhombus.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing, though, Michael. On the whole race, you say that he's got a handicap, but when I was watching this race, obviously I'm a follower of Formula One. By the way, only 3 laps for a race like this when everybody comes out. It takes like 10 minutes. I think that's pretty unrealistic as well. It would be probably like 50 minimum. Yeah. So his pod is so much faster than everybody else's. Because think about it, he's several, like, possibly 15 seconds behind Sebulba, and he manages to catch up to him within 2 laps.
Yeah.
That means his pod is several seconds a lap faster than Sebulba.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking.
And Even when he like has his issue on the third and final lap, and a bit of his pod falls off, and he's like, "Oh shit, I need to boot this back up again," and he does, and he catches up to Sebulba like right away.
Yeah, I was going to say actually one of my pet peeves. Coincidentally, I recently watched Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation, and it happens in this too, which is like a character is half a mile behind another person. They get in their vehicle, catch up with that other person, and then the minute that they catch up, suddenly everything's neck and neck.
Yes.
And you think, hold on, if they were able to catch up with them, that easily, why is it now neck and neck?
Well, I know this issue from Formula One, Michael. It's like, it's very hard to get close, exciting racing because one car is faster than the other. So, that is the case. If you're behind, you're probably not as fast, and it's very hard to catch up that quickly.
Yeah.
And so that's why my brain went to immediately. But then, here's the thing, I was like, how is it that pod so fast? But I don't know if you noticed this. Qui-Gon, when he was fixing his pod for the first time, when he goes, "It's working, it's working." Before that, Qui-Gon,
he waves his little hand.
Yeah, Qui-Gon gives him something. He says, like, "Here's a power boost," and he hands it to him in the pod. And I don't know if you noticed it. I'm guessing not by your reaction.
Yeah, I didn't really.
My reaction is, okay, so was that something that was important? Was that giving him such a boost? So Qui-Gon basically, he's just cheating now. Like, how did he get his hands on this? I mean, maybe it's not cheating, I don't know. But then again, how do all the other people not have this power boost that Anakin was given by Qui-Gon? Because that's the only way I can fathom him being several seconds a lap faster than Sebulba. And if that's the case, then what he could have noticed it at the end. Qui-Gon could have, said to Anakin, "Hey, did you notice you had a power boost at the end?" And, they could have gone, "Oh, it was you who gave me that." But since there's no scene like that after the race, I don't know if that, when Qui-Gon passes Anakin that, if that makes a difference or not. And it's key to him winning, because obviously he's several seconds down. So if that is the case, so yeah, I mean, I'm really confused by if that is actually something or it's nothing. But if it is nothing, then how the fuck is his pod so much faster than everyone else's? So yeah, I know you said
he was the best pilot in the galaxy.
I know you started saying, "Oh, I like the pod race," but yeah, I just have some issues with it.
There are issues with it. Actually, I just realised we haven't really spoken about the ending yet.
No, we're going to do that at the end.
Okay,
I think.
Good.
Yeah,
all right, got you.
There's no more characters really. No. Midichlorians, Michael.
Yeah, I want to talk about midichlorians too. I've got that written down.
So, yeah.
I've been wondering though, Luke, what are midichlorians?
They have made a decision to make Anakin Jesus, which, again, if you watch the original movies, it's not something you got from them. Darth Vader wasn't like somebody who would bring balance to the Force. He wasn't the most powerful Jedi ever. He's just like a regular bad guy who turned to the dark side. He was a friend of Obi-Wan's. So yeah, the decision to make him basically Force Jesus with
Jesus,
the Immaculate Conception and the midichlorians. I don't like it. I think it was a bad decision, and obviously the midichlorians were just panned afterwards because it is a ridiculous idea. There was no need for it, but George Lucas, because he's such a fucking OCD perfectionist, had to stick that in because everything has to be explained.
Yeah, I mean, the midichlorians had nothing. It's like you can just have this idea of like the Force is like some mystic thing. Doesn't need
everyone
to.
Went
anyway,
for it. It's fine. You have suspended my disbelief. Yeah. It's okay.
I feel like the Force is one of the few things. I say one of the few things. It's one of the main things that didn't really need to be explained. Films into the series.
Well, again, everyone gets what it is. It's like, okay, it's unrealistic, but you know what? That's fine. I get it.
And as for Anakin being space Jesus, that also makes no sense. I mean, like I said, there's two problems with it. Number one, like, he's not very Jesus-y, and number two, the fact that obviously, again, it's part of this problem of like, it's the prophecy. He's this important person. It makes him feel less like a character and more like just a cog, like just a thing. It's like, he was just created to fulfill this this role in the story.
Yeah, you're right. It removes his agency. It's like, the Force created this guy, so he's not really like a person then. It's a weird way to look at Anakin, who again in the original movies was just a good guy who turned to the dark side, and that was it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Really, no need to make him, like we said, Force Jesus. So yeah, I think that's it for the main characters again. And the thing is, why we chopped it up into the characters is because this movie is so convoluted and there's so much stuff going on, so many characters that are in there that you have to kind of come at it like this. Because there's there's the Anakin section, and there's Darth Maul, there's Obi-Wan. Again, no main character, really. There's nothing that really... There's no character that drives the narrative, really. Because even, you could say, well, that's Qui-Gon, but he's just reacting to the stuff that's happening, to be honest. So yeah, overall, I guess, we covered all the main bits of the movie. Now we just need to talk about the ending, really. Because the ending is an absolute mess. 4 segments at once, wildly different tones as pointed out in the behind-the-scenes viewing of The Phantom Menace. But good news is, it was stylistically designed to be that way. But I think that was the wrong stylistic choice. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the ending, Michael?
It was bad. I mean, like, I think the thing is, like you said, I mean, everyone's already kind of summarized this. You basically don't need, I mean, number one, like I've already said, Anakin should not have been with them. Number two, you don't really need the whole Gungan thing because Jar Jar shouldn't exist. So the whole battle thing, that can be something, I mean, it'll be interesting to watch for the spectacle, so I can kind of understand that. The space race makes, completely unnecessary because obviously, again, Anakin shouldn't be there. So really, they should have just simplified it down to, the Leia and her lot, not Leia, Padme and her lot, going to do one thing, and then, what's their face, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, get confronted by the thing. Obviously, like we've already said, it would have been clever to have had Maul already there dealing with an insurrection. At that point, you could just have the insurrection be a coincidental thing. Actually, on that note of the ending, sorry, I mean, I know this is kind of going a bit away, but what do you think about the twist that Padme was the queen?
Completely pointless. Does nothing for the plot. As the thing, it's like, well, okay, I get why she'd do it tactically, but I don't really know why. What is the narrative reason for that? Is it because so Anakin can have a relationship with Padme when it turns out she's the queen? Which is problematic in itself, considering they get into a relationship later. And yeah, that we'll talk about more whenever we do Attack of the Clones. But I think it's just kind of pointless. It's just Padme's the real queen. What? Wait, what? And that's the thing. Maybe Qui-Gon knew it. I don't know. But obviously, Padme's berating Qui-Gon for being reckless. Saying, "Oh, the Queen wouldn't approve of this," and then Qui-Gon saying, "The Queen doesn't know, what we're doing, so shut up."
It's very subtle.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, surely Qui-Gon knows that Padme's the Queen because he's a fucking Jedi. Like, surely he.
Oh yeah.
But that's never brought up. Like, it doesn't affect what he's saying either. Like, it'll be nice. I was thinking, watching those two interact, it would be nice if Qui-Gon would say something to indicate that he knows that Padme is actually the queen, but that doesn't happen.
On account of him being a Jedi.
Yes, on account of him being a Jedi. So yeah, there's an issue with that. It doesn't really do anything for the plot, and you get why it's in there, but it's just pointless narrative wise. So yeah.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. It just doesn't add anything. And then obviously there's the fact that, I mean, this is more for the second film, but that it's weird that you'd establish this kind of romantic relationship between somebody who seems like an adult and somebody who seems like a little kid.
Well, somebody who was a kid.
It's fine.
Yeah,
somebody was a little kid, yeah.
Padme was meant to be maybe 18 in this movie.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Anakin is 10.
10.
So, yeah. Here's something I do have an issue with. And I think they should have emphasized this more. What is this movie called, Michael?
The Phantom Menace.
So the Phantom Menace. So that should be the big thing that happens from this movie. If you want to ignore...
Sorry, I just take that.
If you want to just take out Palpatine and say, okay, right, what is the reason to watch Episode 1? Other than Palpatine becoming Chancellor, which again is quite boring. What is the reason? When you're doing a Star Wars rewatchable, what is the reason? Well, it's because the Sith return. That is surely a massive thing. Mace Windu says, well, the Sith haven't been there for a millennia. I think it's Mace Windu who says that. So wait, after 1,000 years the Sith returns and your reaction is just, well, there's always two. That should be like a massive thing about the Jedi Council should convene on it. Like, oh, what are we going to do? Who is this? Maybe they could say, who is this Phantom Menace? But maybe that would be a bit cheesy. But yeah, I think that should be the beginning to the movie, the big conclusion to the movie, the big moment, in this episode of the Star Wars saga. And it is just brushed off by Yoda and Mace Windu. Like I said, the movie is literally called The Phantom Menace, but barely any attention is paid to the Phantom Menace in this movie. There are some lines, like I said, about, well, there's only two, and they've been extinct for a millennia. And Qui-Gon's like, oh, I sensed something wrong with this trade dispute, but again, that should be the conclusion to this. It's like, all this happened, all this occurred because of the Emperor. The Sith are back. That should be the main thing all the characters focus on, at least all the Jedi focus on. And they don't do it. Again, it's just like George Lucas had no idea what he was doing. Why call the movie The Phantom Menace?
Yeah, well, I would even say that they could have possibly, maybe, not had the reveal that the Sith were back even properly occur in this film. Like, just have it be like, some bad guy who's trained in the dark arts, and then like they never even mention the Sith, and then maybe in the second film, like a big thing is like oh wait, there's more of them. This must be a sign that the Sith occurred, and then you could kind of get an indication. Because the other thing is, we don't really get an indication of who the Sith are or what the Sith are.
Yes.
Just the Sith Lord. It's not like you think. So obviously, for some reason I'm thinking about Doctor Who, when like the Doctor explains what the Daleks are. He's like, the Daleks are an evil race of people who exist to kill everything, and it's like, or evil race of mutant things that exist to kill everything. And you're like, okay, good. And he's like, yeah, the main enemy of the Time Lords. Like, great. So just have a scene where someone's like. Yeah, like that would be so much better than what are midichlorians. Like, what are the Sith? What do they want? And you can get like, Sith for people who are dickheads.
Yeah, they're dickheads. That would be good.
Yeah,
they're Victory. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Scum.
No, that's the thing. That's all you. Yeah, I guess that's just again another issue. Because I think that is when I'm watching it back, and I am thinking, the Phantom Menace. What is this? What is the point of watching this movie if you're like want to watch Star Wars? Should be the Sith. They're back. Dun 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 dun. And that leads into Attack of the Clones. All this chaos, all this mess. The death of the Jedi. Wow, the Sith. They're back. And they're darker than ever. Even though that sounds a bit weird. But
they should have called this episode The Death of the Jedi.
Perhaps. Maybe not The Death of the Jedi. Because that would have
confused everyone. They should have called this episode The Last Jedi.
Yeah, because they didn't die. I don't know. Like, the Return of the Sith. How about that?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, I mean, it makes sense. Like, the thing is, they pretty much use that every single time. Like, they could just do it every time. Like, Return of the Clones, Return of the Jedi, Return of the Sith, and then they switch to their revenge. I don't know.
I mean, just it never stops. So yeah, just to sum up on the plot, then I guess I'll just say there's no idea. I have no idea really what is going on throughout the movie, unless you pay close attention. You're just basically trying to figure a bunch of stuff out. And which is happening right in front of you, and it's such a weird movie like that. No basic structure, no actual villain. Darth Maul is just thrown in there at the end. The lack of protagonist, as we mentioned, really hurts. You're being introduced to this new world, because it is literally a new world. Nothing.
A whole new world.
I knew you were going to say that. Nothing's in the first three Star Wars movies, apart from a couple of things that I mentioned in that movie. And everything is just like assumed. You should have to go along with this movie. All the planets and stuff, it's just like, okay, this is happening now. And I don't feel like I was watching it. I was kind of like observing it. That was how I felt. And I think, Lucas, he obviously admitted he may have gone too far in a few places, and I think he definitely did. The plot is just an absolute mess. It is just, it is like a rough draft. I think Plinkett said that in his review. It is a rough draft. It seems like that. And nobody told him, hey, maybe you should cut this or cut that. And yeah, it's unbelievable. The most hype movie ever, and they didn't go further than a rough draft. Wild.
You're right, Luke. Wow, it does. Yeah, it genuinely feels like first draft.
Yeah, that's what I get from just watching it and trying to analyse it like we have done. So let's talk about the revisionism, Michael. I believe you've got some stuff on this. People say the prequels in general, and therefore the Phantom Menace, weren't actually that bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth establishing the kind of genesis of this. I feel like it almost comes from, like, I don't think anybody who was like a teenager when the prequels came out, or older than a teenager, has this issue. But I think it's people who were like little kids. I guess, okay, maybe teenagers, but like the point is nobody who was at the age where they could be cynical about things would have this going for them. I think a lot of people, when it comes to the prequels, like, because we've already said that we have this nostalgia when it comes to the prequels. And I'll admit, like, when I saw that first scene of the Jedi walking in, because Plinkett's famous line is, and it was terrible because it starts with two Jedi walking in at a flat angle. And the weird thing is, from my perspective, when I see those Jedi walk in with that music, looking out, like, there's a part of me that just remembers how I did feel when I was a little kid. And I watched it and I was like, yeah, this is good. I like this. Fun fact, I used to think Attack of the Clones was my favourite Star Wars. How bad is that? Anyway, the point is, I understand why people think or where the desire to see the prequels is good comes from. The problem is, of course, there is now a growing number of people who are like, yeah, the prequels are actually good. From my perspective, I mean, we've mentioned Plinkett several times. I think it's important because one thing I will say is, I guess, a positive about The Phantom Menace is that it led to the Plinkett reviews. Because the Plinkett reviews, from my perspective, I think a lot of people's perspectives, it kind of defined or redefined the idea of like a review. Because before the Plinkett reviews, I remember I used to watch The Nostalgia Critic. And the Nostalgia Critic was famous for reviewing bad films. That's all he'd do. He'd review bad films. And he didn't really make any arguments. If you disagree with the Nostalgia Critic going into a film, nothing he says is going to change your mind. However, when I watched the Mr. Plinkett review back in, when was it released, like 2007, I think I probably watched it in 2008 or 2009. So I was like 13, 14. I was like, oh yeah, I love those films. I love The Phantom Menace. And the Plinkett reviews, or specifically the Plinkett review of The Phantom Menace, changed my mind. It convinced me that actually The Phantom Menace is not a good film. And for me, that's a powerful thing as somebody who likes to review films with my good friend Luke. The idea of a review that changes your mind. And I just wanted to say, like, I think that's a big thing about The Phantom Menace. It's the first time I ever remember, or have any real recollection of a review of a film, a critique of a film, changing my mind about a film and making me realize, actually, no, this film isn't good. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
I know I'm kind of moving away from the main point. I'm going to get onto the main point.
Yeah, no, I never really thought it was that good in the first place. I was like, people hate the prequels. I was like, I didn't, apart from when I was a kid, I didn't watch. I started watching it probably after Revenge of the Sith came out, and then never watched it again. And then I saw the Plinkett reviews, and I was like, oh yeah, it is a really bad movie. So I never really thought it was good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I pretty much kept watching it and was always on board with it. So yeah, I had to be sat down and have it explained to me by some weird man on the internet why it was bad. And I guess that's the thing. You get people nowadays who are like, oh, the prequels are good. And I think part of it now is it's all, what's distinct now is specifically the phenomenon of it being a retroactive view based upon the sequels. So in other words, and we've kind of already expressed some of the things, like the fact that the sequels feel very corporate and like, by the numbers, whereas the people say, oh, the prequels, they feel like a vision. You get the kind of like, say what you will about the prequels, but at least it feels like George Lucas had a vision, which is true. It's just
it is true. It's a shit vision, but at least he had it.
Yeah, and people basically, that's the thing, that there isn't really any attempt to justify that. I see it's usually just people going, I don't care what anyone says, I like the prequels, and then of course you get people who say like, oh, the sequels, that's the big thing. People say, oh, the sequels are worse than the prequels. And again, I don't like the sequels. I actually don't like any of the sequels, really. I've having rewatched them quite recently, I think Rogue One is my favorite, which isn't a good thing.
Wow.
But even then, I don't like Rogue One. It's just my favorite of all of them. Because I think, oh yeah, okay, I get what this is doing. But I would never say that the prequels are best. Well, I will say though, and I think this is the thing, this is true, I feel I have more contempt for the sequels based on the fact, and this is, I think, what it's always going to come down to, the fact that when I watched the sequels, I was somebody who was capable of cynicism, of extreme cynicism. I was, 20 years old, I think, or 18, 19, when the first one, The Force Awakens, came out. And yeah, I was very capable of being cynical. So I said, yeah, that was kind of disappointing. Feels kind of like a corporate cash grab. Don't really, feel that enthusiastic about this. Whereas, of course, when The Phantom Menace came out, I was a little kid who wasn't really capable of cynicism. So I just thought to myself, yeah, that was great. I love lightsabers. And I think and the problem is, even to this day, like, I watch The Phantom Menace and I don't feel angry about it. I just feel like whatever. And then, of course, I watch The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi or Solo or even Rogue One, and I feel angry because I know that it's not a particularly good film, or not a particularly inspired film. And so I get people who say, like, I like the prequels more in some sense. I get that, but they have to realize that what they're saying when they say they like is they're really describing their emotional disposition. They're not describing the overall quality of the films, because objectively, cool, The Force Awakens uninspired, but at least it makes sense. At least it's got like a clear main character. At least it's coherent.
I'll say a positive thing about The Phantom Menace. I don't think a movie like that could happen today. Because and why is that a positive thing? Well, it's because everything is so controlled, everything is so corporate, and Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi did try to break out of that a bit, and I think he failed at doing that because he's not making a solo movie; he's making a movie in the middle of a trilogy. Essentially, that's my main critique. But there was a bit of look at that, as like one guy with a vision, but it's still, I imagine the studio had some influence in it, for better or for worse. But again, you look at The Force Awakens, just a complete this is very much designed to be this way. Phantom Menace,
it's stylistically designed.
Yes, Phantom Menace, just an absolute mess of a movie. But the fact that could happen to a movie which raked in $1 billion and was going to be the biggest movie of all time, and would have been the biggest that year if it hadn't been the Titanic, just shows that back then, I guess stuff like that, crazy stuff like that, could happen. Now, like, if you imagine the hype for Avengers Endgame, would have been it would never have been as bad. There's no universe in which it would have been as bad as Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, because everything is just so controlled.
There's more of a committee.
Yeah, exactly. So again, that kind of makes you feel like nostalgic for the times when like something
people can make terrible films.
something like a guy with a vision, and his vision is shit, but a guy with a vision could make his own movie, and that doesn't really happen anymore. And if it does,
and I suppose it's relevant that you, and I think I, to a reasonable degree, think that the 90s was the best time for films.
Yeah, no, it was.
Obviously, if you're going to say that, then you have to. That's kind of possibly the flip side to the fact that people made crazy films like The Phantom Menace, because obviously then you've got, for example, Fight Club. The studios hated that, and they weren't fond of it at all, as you kind of pointed out. But nowadays, it's considered to be a really kind of classic, interesting film.
Yeah, you do wonder nowadays how many movies that could be like Fight Club just get shut down. Obviously, we'll never know. But you just see like a movie break out like Deadpool, and it's so hard for that movie to break out. Obviously, we went through how difficult it was.
They had to leak the trailer footage.
And look how much success it made. And it's like that. It's now a very well liked superhero movie. But again, that right there, that could have so easily been killed, and we'd never known anything about it. And I wonder how many more movies actually have been killed that could have the same impact as like a Fight Club or a Deadpool.
What George Lucas should do if he wanted to be a hero? He should start his own production company where he just doesn't interfere and lets people create their own crap, and it should be called Crap Creation by George Lucas.
Yeah, okay. Actually, you know what? We'll get on to what the theory of movies being better in the 90s than today. Or basically my theory, and you agree with it as well.
Is that when we do American Beauty?
No. When later in this pod, when we talk about special effects.
Oh, okay. Aren't we almost on that right now?
First racism, which
racism. Yeah,
we can't talk about this movie without talking about the racism. Like with Jar Binks, the droopy hairs, reminiscent of dreadlocks, and spoke with a Caribbean accent. The greedy and corrupt Nemoidians of the Trade Federation, who spoke with East Asian accents. And the trader Watto.
East Asian? Wasn't it West Asian? Hey, my name's Troidarian. How's it? Sorry, no, I'm being an idiot. Sorry, I was confusing. For some reason, I was confusing the Troidarians with the Trade Federation. Stupid.
The Nemoidians are East Asian, yes.
Yeah, sorry, because you said Moidian. I thought like Troidarian. And I was like,
I'm a Troidarian. I only care about money.
All I care about is destroying Western culture. That would be Jeremy Corbyn's favourite film. We can say that because this will be released after the electoral period is over.
Yeah, I know. So here's the thing. That obviously, Watto, yes, you mentioned it can be compared to Jewish stereotypes reminiscing of Charles Dickens' character's Fagin. So there you are. Lucas denied all of these implications, and he added it reflected more of the racism of the commenters than it does the movie.
Oh, good.
You're the real racist for pointing out the racism.
Yeah, well, that's what Hitler said. He was like, I hadn't noticed that all these people going to concentration camps were Jews. If you're obsessed with whether or not someone's a Jew, it sounds like you might be the anti-Semite.
Yeah. Michael Eric Dyson, professor of African American Studies at Georgetown, said the entire Gungan people seem oddly suggestive of a primitive African tribe. He said the leader of Jar Jar's tribe is a fat, bumbling buffoon with a rumbling voice and seems to be a caricature of a stereotypical African tribal chieftain. So yeah, all the bad guys have Asian accents and Mexican accents, and the comic relief has a Caribbean accent. The Watto guy...
he's a Jew.
I don't know why I said Mexican accents, by the way. I don't know.
Yeah,
there's no real there is no Mexican accents really in this movie. Watto, obviously, guy likes money. The Jewish stereotype is obviously there, and I think again, I don't think Lucas was trying to be racist, but it is what I believe. Racial coding.
I think it's exactly. It's kind of like a subconscious thing.
Exactly.
Like
people's subconscious bias, how they picture certain characters, and how they picture the accents. Because Jews like money, so Watto has a Jewish voice. And that's
the thing, because obviously, I was just going to say, Ahmed Best, who plays Jar Jar, is of course black.
Yes.
And I think you don't have to argue poor Ahmed Best, he was duped into playing this horrendously racist character. Because ultimately you can just say, well, you know what, he probably thought it was funny and he was okay with it, and he was chill with it. Because Ahmed Best seems to be kind of a pretty chill guy from what I've seen of him. So I imagine he was okay with it. But then having said that, you can say there is a racial dimension to the fact that the character is coded this way without necessarily saying, wow, George Lucas is a raving racist. Anyone who likes Jar Jar is a racist, not a racist, just an idiot. And Ahmed Best, he's Uncle Tom. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, no, you don't have to say any of that.
Yeah, again,
So stop saying it, Luke.
Okay, well, no, I don't think George Lucas is racist. I don't think this movie is racist. It's just like, if you make a movie like this and you don't consider stuff, if you're you think about those behind the scenes shots of The Phantom Menace, they're all white males. Like, I don't know, maybe males doesn't really have much to do with it because it's about, ethnicity, but they're all white, they're all American, all have the same backgrounds, and so on. And even, like, all the actors are white apart from Mace Windu, who's played by Samuel L. Jackson. So, yeah, it's just basically, they're doing stuff which is, yes, quite racist, but at the same time, it was not deliberate.
Yeah, also it's got famous racist Liam Neeson in it.
Oh, yes, good point, yes. So yeah, that's the racism thing. It's bad, but it's not intentional, so whatever. I just think it's a product of the people who made it and possibly of its time as well. So yeah, there's that. Special effects now, Michael.
Yeah, I agree. Special effects.
So
they were special, all right?
Special effects, I believe, are just a tool to tell a story, not a means to an end in itself. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, who said it? Some great mastermind like Scorsese or Tarantino?
George Lucas.
Who Luke? What?
Yeah.
George Lucas said that?
He said that, and I think the first clue that these movies were going to be bad was when he decided to wait until the special effects could produce the kind of movie he wanted to make. So you think about it, it's like, oh no, I'm not going to create this movie until I get this, the CGI where I can make this movie. It's like, okay, then you're focusing more on the special effects than the actual story. So maybe that should have been the first clue. But yeah, just from Wikipedia, George Lucas began production of this film after he determined the computer-generated imagery, CGI, had advanced to the level he wanted for the prequel trilogy's visual effects. So there you go. I think around this time, in the late 90s, because I think we had it with Godzilla, movie executives and studios started to realise that special effects could make a movie and make it more popular than actual storytelling. And why I mentioned Godzilla, because we had a critic at the time who criticised Godzilla and saying, are movies nowadays just going to be special effects and that's going to be it? No story, no good dialogue, no characters. And I was like, yeah, you have no idea what's coming, pal. Obviously, later that year, Godzilla was 98, 1 year later, Phantom Menace, then we had the Transformers movies. And I do think like the Phantom Menace is a defining movie in that sense, because it was a massive success. It raked in over $900 million. It had a shit story, a complete mess of a plot, but loads of cool stuff was in it with special effects. It was a real change in blockbusters.
I was going to say, George Lucas, he's kind of a bit like Peter Jackson, and also, I guess, to an extent, what's it called? Who's the other guy? The guy who did Avatar. James Cameron.
Yes.
So obviously, Peter Jackson, famously with The Hobbit, one of the things that he was doing was really pushing hard for this high frame rate stuff.
Yes.
And basically pushing for a variety of technological advancements. And there's actually an argument out there that the reason he split The Hobbit into 3 films is because he was like, that way it's more likely to make more money. Because, there's going to be 3 of them rather than 2 of them. That's free.
Well, I'd say that's
box
probably
office,
a studio
people
thing,
going
right?
to box office.
No,
actually, I've heard. I mean, he claims to this day that it was him who pushed for 3 films. He may be lying, because obviously people do that. But I think that basically the argument is that actually, yeah, he did push for 3, and the argument being that the reason why, and this is all speculation, but I think it's valid speculation, is that he wanted to show that this high frame rate stuff could be economically viable, because he wanted to introduce a new handy thing to the director's tool belt. And then, of course, you get James Cameron, who, of course, did Avatar, which was, groundbreaking for its special effects. And then you get the Phantom Menace, which, believe it or not, was groundbreaking for its special effects. Or like a whole load of things.
Oh no! Roger Ebert said
did.
Roger Ebert gave the Phantom Menace 3.5 stars and called it an astonishment achievement in imaginative filmmaking. So it's clear that special effects back then were an indicator of quality in a movie.
Yeah, but there is actually a quote, and I mentioned before how Lucas was like a mental when it came to editing, like with his whole split screen editing and things like that, being like, well, let's just take this character and copy and paste them out because I like this character in that take, but I like this character in that take. So and basically, he in that same video, he basically says one of the things we're hoping to do is make not just special effects for this film, but then also allow other filmmakers in the future to use these same special effects. So, I mean, that's good. It's kind of altruistic. The thing is, you have to realize that without this film, and all the special effects that were attached to this film, which is pretty much guaranteed, because that thing, Lucas knew this was going to make billions of dollars, well, not billions, but hundreds of millions of dollars, going into $1 billion. He knew that already. And then he decided, well, let's balloon the budget a bit and explore some new special effects so that, eventually, special effects can progress. And obviously today, it's fair to say that if The Phantom Menace hadn't been released, there'd probably be a bit of a lag in terms of special effects not being quite as good.
Yeah, well, I think what you mentioned before with Lucas and Cameron and what was the other guy?
Peter Jackson.
There's a clear pattern here. They create great stories, great movies, which obviously don't rely on special effects, which rely on the actual stories. Yeah. James Cameron with Terminator, George Lucas with the original 3 Star Wars movies, and Peter Jackson with The Lord of the Rings. So they've already done this incredible story.
Really
and then,
great stories,
because they want to push the boundaries, they want to go even further. Like, well, I can't really do a better story, so let's do more special effects. Let's focus on that. Right. And I think, obviously, Avatar and The Hobbit, very much relied on special effects, as did the Star Wars movies, and I think that was the key for these directors.
And obviously, The Hobbit and the Star Wars prequels are both really bad.
Yes,
Avatar's just okay.
Avatar's just okay. It's like the most average movie ever.
No real story.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, these directors were, hey, let's focus on these special effects because they've already created these stories. They want to keep pushing the boundaries. They want to become innovators, I guess. They've already done, they've picked up the awards for the movies they've made. Let's go even further. Let's try and do something that nobody else has done. And that's probably what motivates them, Cameron, Lucas, and Peter Jackson. And so, it makes sense, I guess, that George Lucas was so obsessed with CGI and so obsessed with these special effects. Because that he'd already created the Star Wars movies, he'd already done a really good trilogy. He's like, I want to move on, I want to advance film. That was probably on his mind. And again, I think nobody cares about the Hobbit movies. Avatar has just completely fallen out of pop culture talk. Like, nobody gives a shit about that. And obviously the prequels are pretty much panned and are a joke. So, message for all filmmakers: do not focus on special effects. Focus on the story, because you might receive praise right out the gate, like George Lucas did. Because you just look at the critics in the critical reception page of the Wikipedia, they were all really praising of the special effects, not noticing that it was actually irrelevant to how good the movie was. So it may
dumb critics.
It may be good at the time to be like, wow, nobody's ever done this before. It's incredible triumph of technology, but in the long run, it will not hold up unless the story is good as well. So that's what I'd say. I guess that's the thing with Jurassic Park.
Yeah, you're right.
Like with Spielberg, like Jurassic Park, an incredible technological achievement. Everybody talked about it, but the reason why people still love it is because it's a really great movie that doesn't rely on the special effects. So
exactly. Sorry, just something else I wanted to say about special effects, because I didn't actually mention this, was the CGI environments. They're like, I don't think you get quite as many shots of like the classic one is, of course, people in a studio. Oh, sorry, not a studio. Like a hallway, and then behind them you've got like this really obviously fake, extension of the hallway. And for some reason, it's weird. It's like, it looks worse than the matte painting. Yeah, matte painting. That's what it's called, right? Yeah. When you get like a painting in the background. Yeah. It looks like worse than that. Like, there are, films that actually do have, matte paintings and you don't notice them. But in this, like, even though they had CGI, which essentially should be better, it all looks really fake. And the thing about the CGI environments not looking good is that it almost feels like it's just laziness. Because, if they could have put a decent amount of effort into rendering them, I don't know. I guess probly,
who knows how much
Lucas is a bit of a maverick, so exactly, yeah. But yeah, so in general, the kind of over a huge amount of CGI environments wasn't as bad in this, because there weren't as many shots of characters talking in hallways and stuff like that. And obviously there were plenty of actual sets. Like, I also went to Tunisia for the Tatooine stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, like, it's fine, but it's noticeably fake in some areas. So.
Yeah, I guess that's just a passage of time,
And I would say I don't think they really created any unique looking environments, is the other thing I would say. Whereas, for example, I think you could say that the later two films probably create slightly more unique environments. This time it feels like they don't really create any unique areas with the CGI.
That's fair enough. Yeah, that's fair enough. Just one thing on the special effects, by the way. We mentioned that before, the 90s were the best era for filmmaking. And I think that is because generally, like, people cared more about the story because they couldn't use special effects. So that was where people's focus was on, and that creates great movies that are rewatchable still today. Special effects kind of... I mean, maybe studios were just, I feel like, more focused on producing these movies with incredible special effects in the 2000s. And that is... And then obviously you have the economic crash in 2008, and studios only want movies that are guaranteed to make money, so that then filters out all, the would-be good movies, as we talked about before with Deadpool. Even though Deadpool ain't that great, that's just an example of a movie which nearly got crushed, which was a wild success. So I guess, special effects kind of maybe ruined movies a bit. Maybe they did.
Yeah, I wish we were born in the wrong generation.
We were. Anyway, shall we conclude on The Phantom Menace now, Michael?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
So, do you want to go first or shall I? It's up to you.
I'll go first.
Okay, go on then.
You know, why not? I actually think I pretty much already know exactly where I'm going to place this. Which is, so, like I've already said, I don't think this is better than the sequels. The lowest sequel I have is The Last Jedi, and yeah, I'm kind of comfortable where I put that. So I think I'm going to put it above. I mean, you know, it could go either way on this, but I think this is actually true. I'm going to put it above Godzilla 98. Also, I'm going to put it above Tomb Raider, and yeah, below Grease. So I think that seems fair. I think that seems really fair, actually. So what about me? I mean, you know, I'm not saying that I'm some genius when it comes to overpowering my own sense of personal nostalgia in order to give an objective opinion, but I'd say that's a pretty good objective opinion, wouldn't you, Luke? You wouldn't. That's fine. It doesn't matter.
Sorry, what did you say?
It doesn't. I mean, it was a bit of a ramble, so I don't know. I mean, you really just say yeah. Just say yeah, Luke.
Okay, yeah.
Good.
Right, where did you place it, by the way, again?
I placed it above Godzilla. No, sorry, I placed it above Tomb Raider, below Grease.
Okay, so
which I think is very fair.
Here's the thing: before we've talked about The Phantom Menace, and I said it was a legitimate 1 out of 10 movie. I remember I said that once.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't agree with.
I think you did. Yeah,
I don't agree with that though, because I think I was being too harsh on that day. I think it's more than 1 out of 10 because considering I put like 50 Shades of Grey, Darker at 2 out of 10. I can't put this movie lower than that. But it is extremely bad, just an absolute mess. Like I said, a rough first draft. The music was the only thing that was really good about it, and just an incredibly disappointing movie at the time. And yeah, still today, it doesn't get any better. I'm gonna have to give this 2.5 out of 10. I've given it about a 2.5 out of 10 too. I've given it a high 2, so yeah, 2.5. Slightly higher.
We agree.
Slightly higher. But yeah, it's a crazy, by the way, it's got like 54 on Rotten Tomatoes, 54%. It just means more positive than negative reviews, which is
That's great,
which is wild. Yeah, it's just at the time, I guess, how much people were influenced by those special effects. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of people out there who view these films as like 6 out of 10s because they kind of say to themselves, well, you know, it's not great, but you know, it's a story. Things happen. Like, I generally feel like there are people out there who kind of there are people who think because it's Star Wars and because they like this universe and because they like kind of the action and things like that, they'll say, well, you know, it's a 6 out of 10 or like a 5 out of 10. You know, they'll kind of say it with that logic, which is so basically their argument is, in other words, if a film really doesn't have anything going for it, has a lot going against it, but it's not like, you know, cancer, like, oh yeah, 6 out of 10, that's fair.
It's an absolute mess.
But these are the same people who would probably give, to be fair, these are the same people who give like Empire Strikes Back a 10 out of 10.
All right, yeah.
So idiots. Okay,
so Michael, let us do something which I've been looking forward to all year and predict the Rise of Skywalker, what rating it is going to get on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, obviously, last time, The Last Jedi...
I thought we were going to predict the general election results.
We'll do that after.
Okay.
We'll do double prediction.
Because politics is important.
Yes, it is.
And interesting.
Just an hour to go before the exit poll.
I know, yeah.
I'm going to listen back to this and I'm going to be like, oh god, it was only an hour until the whole country just fucking died.
Yeah, when Corbyn became leader.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah, that's
no. I'm okay. We'll talk about the Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to do badly. I mean, like in terms of the result, I think maybe it will get Force Awakens numbers. Maybe I'm going to go for slightly less than Force Awakens. Then look at what Force Awakens got. Whenever it got, I'm going to go 4 less than Force Awakens.
You got like 91%.
Okay, yeah. Force Awakens got 93%, so I'm going 4 less than that. I think it's going to get 89%. There we go.
Did you just check what The Last Jedi got?
Yeah, I am curious about that. Last Jedi got 91%, so...
Yeah, okay, 91, 93. So it would follow that this movie would get 89. What did you predict, by the way?
I think I just predicted 89%. That's exactly what I just predicted. Yeah, because I said... Because as you remember, I said, whatever Star Wars Force Awakens got, I'm going to go 4% less than that.
Okay. So...
And 93%, I got 89%. I don't know. Do you want...
Yeah, I think this movie is going to get a bit of backlash, because I think this movie, the fans are going to like it more than The Last Jedi, and that will mean that the critics are like, yeah, not really. So I'll go for 84 then. If you're going 89, I'll go 84.
All right, okay, yeah, good. That's fine, fair enough.
That's my logic to it.
But it's good to know that you basically admitted that I'm probably right, although it's going to make it even more annoying if you're right.
Okay.
Especially saying it's like, you know, the one time the critics are probably... Because, I mean, we're not going to like it. I think there's a very small chance we're going to like it. So if the one time the critics are even close to agreeing with us, and it's the one time where I guessed high. That's going to suck. Anyway.
Yeah, it's really difficult to predict because you just don't know what the critics are going to do.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be...
It's difficult for this one especially because we're looking at The Last Jedi and it's like, oh yeah, Last Jedi, 91%. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, I gave it a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm thinking there will be a backlash because they were like, okay, I think it's going to be a completely different movie to The Last Jedi based on what the actors have said and based on just J.J. Abrams and how the backlash to The Last Jedi. And critics are going to be like, no, you're getting a mark down for that. It's only going to be, well, I hope 84. So anyway, Michael, the general election. We're under an hour away from the exit polls.
Yep, I've got to head off to go to the count soon. That's exciting.
And under an hour away until we decide whether our country will be literally in a, well, not even a good position, in a less than average position, or just we are now America, and all of America's faults in terms of privatized healthcare and all of that. That is my fear anyway. So, having said all that, what do you think is going to happen?
Do you know what I think is going to happen? So here's my one logic. I don't know if I told you this yet, but as you'll remember, in 2017, the Tories were ahead in the polls.
Yes.
But they failed to get a majority, and they had to get a kind of deal with the DUP in order to succeed.
Mm-hmm. They lost seats, yeah.
At that point, they were, on the day of the election, they were 8 points ahead in the polls. Today, they are 5 points ahead, meaning they're 3 points lower than they were in 2017. I genuinely think, this is my belief, I think it will be so close, and I'm probably wrong, but I think that we will see at least a 3-way coalition, but I think that we might see even a situation where, like, the Greens are like a decider. Like, it's like Jeremy Corbyn, in order to form a government, is like, I have to get the Greens on board, or like the SDLP, I don't know. Like, he's gonna, I think, basically, my prediction is it's going to be very marginal, not very, like, comfortable. And I also think this is the case if Boris Johnson does win, but I actually think Jeremy Corbyn is going to scrape in with what has been referred to as a coalition of chaos. Basically, in other words, a broad coalition. I definitely think he's at least going to have...
I hope you're right, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I think we're going to at least have Labour, SNP and Lib Dems all in a coalition.
Okay. Here's the thing, Michael. Here's the thing. I think the polls will have picked up... They would have learned...
You think they'll have changed and fixed?
Yeah, they'll have learned their mistake from 2017, because I think what you're saying here, there's a 5-point gap. But before the last week, there was an 8-point gap. And you see it in a lot of polls, like Delta and YouGov and Survation, I think you see +3 Labour, Conservative staying the same. So I think that +3 is those poll people factoring in the youth surge that happened in 2017, and just the general trend towards Labour at the end of the election, and factoring that into the polls today.
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, that's kind of like my thoughts, but I think it could very easily be completely
So
wrong.
I think the Conservatives will get a majority.
Yeah.
And I think it will be not comfortable, but it won't be like razor thin. So give me how many seats do you think the Conservatives are going to win?
Okay. Well, again, I mean, I think realistically, it could be like, I think the maximum they'll get is 10 above. So I guess that's 236. But I'll go for, I kind of need to work out my maths for this, but...
You mean 336,
I guess,
right?
Yeah, sorry, 336. I'll go for 312.
So they would lose about 3 seats then.
Yeah, if I'm like that.
Okay, I definitely think they're going to gain seats, and I think they are going to get around 331. That's my guess, because YouGov had about 329 seats that they were going to win. I think that that was what the final YouGov poll had.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that the polls have been maybe a bit too kind to Labour with that +3 and have factored in the youth vote, and therefore it's going to basically be the same. I'm just, because I'm a bit of a pessimist, swing a bit more towards the Tories. So I'm going to say 331 for the Conservatives, and whoever, I don't know what that would mean for Labour, but yeah. So you're saying 3. What are you saying again?
I'll go for, I don't know. I mean, like, it's kind of just made up in my head. I went for 312, but
312.
Like, basically, I mean, the main thing I'm kind of focused more on the coalition mathematics, in other words. So I'm looking at the thing now, and I'm thinking like, basically,
I don't think you're going to need to look at that, pal. I really don't. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. I'm looking at the results for what it is now, and I'm thinking like basically 181 for the Labour, 94 Lib Dems. Like, I think obviously Labour are going to go up and Lib Dems are going to go down, I think. But I think ultimately, yeah, my cautious guess is that basically a combination of Labour, Lib Dems, and SNP will be like 3-7. I don't know. That's like my thoughts. But
well, let's hope you're right, Michael. Let's hope you're right. But yeah, I'm dreading that election.
Yeah, we'll see.
Oh god. Anyway,
it will be interesting.
Well, yeah. So anybody listening to this after December the 12th, 2019, will know how much of a state.
That'll be embarrassing.
Yeah, how much of a state Britain is in. Hopefully, it's a still, like I said, below average state compared to what it could be. So that's been the Phantom Menace review with a bit of our election at the back end. Thanks for watching. We've been selecting and reflecting on the Phantom Menace because of the release of the related Star Wars movie, The Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9. And join us next week, Michael, for what we're doing.
Solo, a Star Wars story.
Solo, a Star Wars story, yes. So who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening and goodbye.
Goodbye.